So, the Wolverines are in excellent position right now. I expect him to head to Michigan when he does sign on Wednesday. He's an early enrollee. I expect him to, find some playing time fairly early in his career. He's a big time end that's very strong.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in. That was Adam Friedman. He is the Rivals national analyst, talking about a defensive end from the East Coast who might be signing on the dotted line with Michigan tomorrow. It's National Signing Day Eve here on the Maize and Blue Review. We're happy to have you along, whether you're listening on the pod, whether you're watching right here on YouTube. It's great to have you here. Signing day is always special and described as a birthday and Christmas all wrapped up into one. It's changed over the years where they have the two. It might change again. There's been some talk about that with this early signing period. But right now, tomorrow is the opening of a 72-hour window for high school players to sign their letters of intent. And for Michigan, it's been quite the month. And when Michigan beat Ohio State, the immediate talk was, wow, well, what's the staff going to be able to do on the recruiting trail now that they have a W of with having the W of Ohio State in their back pocket? And, the local, national, Brandon Justice, recruiting editor here at TMBR, said, hey, it's because of the relationships, because of, the nature of recruiting, is might not end up, showing up in this class, this 2022 class, which can sign early tomorrow, but likely, it's really going to take effect in 2023. Well, then they won the Big Ten, which was also so handy, because then you could say, hey, we can be very clear and we can be very honest about all of it. Michigan has been able to offer everything to a potential recruit, with the exception of a few things. One is that if they beating Ohio State, they have not been able to say, hey, look, we beat Ohio State. It's been, you can be the one that can change things up and get us to the mountaintop, which, there's different ways of saying that. The other thing is, that they haven't been able to talk about going to Indy in the college football playoffs. Well, that's a nice thing to be able to have, where you can say, yeah, look at us. And every single day, like I'm going to be talking about the Orange Bowl coming up a little bit here. You watch ESPN or you're watching any show over there at some point, they're going to get, let's talk about the college football playoff. What do they think? Well, let's go Michigan, Georgia. Well, let's go. And it's happening, for the next 17 days until it's happening for the rest of the year here in 2021. That's invaluable when it comes to the PR you get across the country. What was not expected, although, the signs, because of the coaching carousel, and the coaching carousel is not just with the head coaches, but you have a lot of the assistants going and moving around. Well, those assistants that have the relationships with the certain players. And when that happens, sometimes the player's like, you know what? I want stability. There's any number, and I'm opening this back up. Well, the thing here is we get right into the Michigan Recruiting Spotlight, which is a segment that happens every day here on Afternoon Live. Michigan, it was only, a month or so ago, they were sitting at 20 or 21 in the Rivals team rankings. And, I pointed yesterday to the 2018 class, which was ranked 24th, and, just all of the outstanding players that contributed to where Michigan's at right now in the college football playoff. That's all fine, and that's good. And yeah, you want to develop and everything else, but you want the best class. You want the best possible players that you can get. We all understand that. And so when they were sitting there at 21, it was like, it's been a good year, but it's not showing up on the recruiting trail. But since then, Michigan has just been going up and up and up. I was going like this, acting like it was going down, but no, they've been going up, and up, where they have cracked the top 10. And now, as we sit here on the eve of National Signing Day, and, the next 24, next 30 or so hours, it's a total fluid situation. But, I count about 10 players that Michigan is still in on. And, this is what the experts are looking at and everything that they can possibly come up with, before we get to tomorrow morning when the sun comes up. But there could be more, and there could be flips on the team. There could be flips. There's going to be some flips across the country here. Michigan is in great position, and it's just going to be a heck of a 30+ hours as we get here. And there's no telling if Michigan, if they pull, I don't know, even half of these players that, there's on the Maize and Blue Review, the publisher, Josh Henske, the recruiting editor, Brandon Justice. I mean, they're putting out these future forecasts, and some of these they're highly rated players, and Michigan is expecting expecting that they're in with a really good chance, and these guys are predicting that they're ultimately going to end up with Michigan here. And it's been to close like this. Yeah, it's part of the coaching carousel. It's also a look at Michigan. There was Josh Gaddis for a second, was there with that Virginia job. And you're thinking, okay, well, Michigan's staff right now, at least right now, they heading into signing day, it has stayed intact. That's a big deal, along with beating Ohio State and winning the Big Ten and going to the college football playoffs. That has factored in. And now Michigan is here, and it is they're in great position. I would also add the name, image, and likeness. There's whether you want. I think a lot of people used it as excuses, as an excuse, the number one excuse over the years why Michigan couldn't compete with Ohio State or Alabama or Clemson. It was just like, well, they all cheat. They're paying their players. Michigan's not. They can offer them a scholarship and. Hey, here's what the university does in terms of academics and everything, but they can't hand them a bag, with cash in. Well, they essentially can do that now, pretty much. And so that is even the playing field as well. So a lot of the things that were factors before, and, the biggest one I think is the winning. Biggest one is winning, beating Ohio State, going to the college football playoff. There are things that Alabama has. When you watch Nick Saban, there's a couple. I don't know if there's a couple. There's one that I saw in the last year. Nick Saban sitting at his desk and talking to a recruit. It's about 10, 12 minutes. You can probably find it on YouTube. But everything that Saban says there is pitch is pretty easy. He says, look, people try to recruit against us saying that you're not going to play here at Alabama. Well, we played 8 true freshmen last year, and look at so-and-so. And then he talks about the Heisman Trophy. Then he talks about SEC championships. And he talks about college football play. It just goes on and on and on. It really sells itself. So, it's he had to get to that point, but it's an easy sales job. It's pretty easy when it's like ice cold water at a 95-degree Michigan football game. You're that kid outside, like, hey, they're going fast, and it's an easy sell. Probably a lot of better. Examples are just as good examples that you can use there. We'll get to some Orange Bowl talk, some more recruiting, some more of the preview for tomorrow. Here's Antoine, we haven't seen for a while here. He's jumping in on the feedback. As you leave your feedback here, Michigan has gotten hot with recruiting, and they've recruited tons of corners. They seem to be recruiting a defense to stop Ohio's passing game, and they got a couple of pass rushers and some nice linebackers. I would agree, like, when you're talking about, the players that they've gone after and just looking at this class here, and they are getting hot. I think hot's the right word, Antoine, on the recruiting trail. If you can get hot, Michigan's hot as a firecracker right now. I played the sound from Adam Friedman, who's a national analyst for Rivals. He also did a story today about the 5 teams that could really move up tomorrow in the rankings, and one of them was Michigan. And, they've got some scholarships, and they're closing fast. Like I said, there's 8. You make a case for 10. There's always a few surprises here. And this is involving with the flips and everything else. And it is, I don't think they're just sitting back and picking and choosing which ones they're going to get. And I don't think they're going to get all 8 or 10. I don't even know if they can fit all those guys in, because it's always a numbers game. But they're in great position, and it's one of these things we anticipated, winning against Ohio State was going to be great. For a lot of it, was going to get all the things that we've talked about, a chance to go and play in Indy. Now, the college football playoff, but recruiting, it might take a while. Well, it's closing fast. And what we've already seen for next year is that while Michigan is closing fast and hot, they're also opening up fast and hot too for next year. So, winning will do a lot of things for you. There's a lot of sayings about, winning cures everything, give me a winner. And you know what? It does. And it was like some of the smack talk that's going around, whether it's Desmond Howard or, this person, Michigan State, anything else, from a Michigan standpoint, you just sit back and you say, you know what? Hey, what was the scoreboard? Where are we playing at? College football playoff. And it's really the trump card to be able to throw, on an opposing program or a rival. And then, you see it seeping in and playing out everywhere. And in here on the recruiting stage here on the eve of National Signing Day. And, I remember last year, with all of the different coaching changes that were made. And, there are a lot of people that follow it. I don't say closer than me, but they do follow it closer than me, and I'd ask them, well, why are these guys going to make a difference on the recruiting trail? And, youthful exuberance, energy. These guys can really get after it on the recruiting trail. I've been around enough businesses where when you get new people coming in, they're always like, yeah, all right, we're young, we're exciting, we're cutting edge. And okay, I've got to see it, before I'm like, okay, here's another new staff, talking about the things they can do. But, the energy part played out on the football field. You talk to any one of those players, and what was the difference this year? They all talked about it being noticeable in spring practice. They all talked about the energy that those coaches brought. And, that same energy is also being talked about on the recruiting trail. I don't know, maybe if you're 35, that's going to give you the energy to, jump on that plane or drive that car, or just when you show up, you're what's this, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, more than somebody that would be my age or older coming in, saying, a little, coffee or something. Maybe it's an energy drink. I don't know. But the staff here, and now that they're armed with everything, and the playing field is much more even when it comes to name, image, and likeness, and where Michigan may be with that also. I mean, that's a factor in. And then, but the biggest thing is just keep going back to winning, and just what has happened here. And you can see it with what Trepa is saying here. Aiden Hutchinson was the energy. Well, he was the energy, but you know what? Aiden was the one we've heard from over the last couple of weeks. It was asked. He was on the, we were playing that audio for you last week. We're here every day for you weekdays. And then after Michigan football and basketball games, every day, 1:00 go live. And, Hutchinson was the one that, came back and said it again. No, the energy, it's the energy from the staff. It was noticeable. From the beginning, and even going back to spring. And, Sharon Moore, I'll go to a couple guys that, I knew that Ron Bellamy, I was familiar with him. I had interviewed him. He was right down the street, so to speak, at West Bloomfield as a head coach. I rooted for him. A coworker of mine, Stoney's the PA announcer at West Bloomfield. He talked to Ron Bellamy a lot. I was talking to Stoney. I was, Ron Bellamy, a former Michigan guy. I was rooting for him. Then when he came in and, knowing his whole family and everything, I could see how Ron Bellamy would be not only an outstanding coach from what he has done at West Bloomfield, but also as a recruiter. I knew Mike Hart. I worked in Ann Arbor when Mike Hart was a player. Michigan Mike Hart is one of the most beloved Michigan football players of all time. So having Mike Hart back, and what we saw on the football field with Mike Hart coaching the running backs here, I mean, Mike Hart gets an A. Mike Hart gets an A+ on the sideline. Mike Hart is a recruiter. Mike Hart is a pretty personable guy as well. Another home run. Now, Sharon Moore, and I have to admit, going back before the season, and when they, they made the move to bring Sharon Moore and make him the offensive line coach, you know what? I don't know. Maybe it's a good move, but Sharon Moore, and you look at what, and we have some audio here that I'm going to play about the Orange Bowl. It's somebody else talking about Michigan's offensive line might be the best in the country. Michigan's offensive line, the way they came together. Michigan's offensive line against Ohio State. Michigan's offensive line. I mean, Michigan's offensive line has been fantastic this year. So, yeah, I'll credit the players. I'm gonna credit their position coach too, Sharon Moore. I mean, he's done a fabulous job. And I had heard a lot about Sharon Moore, like, well, they had to make a move with him and elevate him because he's such a dynamic coach and he's such a good recruiter that other teams are going to be coming after him. I'm like, well, is it really something that you want to put him in position as an offensive line coach? But he's known out there to be a closer and great on the recruiting trail. And, you take it for what some of the recruiting analysts and recruiting experts and what people say about him. But then you just watch some of the news conferences that Sharon Moore, when he stands out in front of the podium there, I don't know, you can practice it. You can, I'm talking about having charisma or, owning a room. Sharon Moore does that. He's got it. I mean, he stands up at the podium. You're like, well, this guy's pretty interesting. I mean, you're just drawn to him. Great speaker. And I can just imagine him being out on the recruiting trail. I'll go to another one of those recruiters. And I remember Mo Lindquist, who came over and was like, well, he's got some pro experience. He's going to be with the corners and everything else. He took the Buffalo job. And this was already after spring, and Michigan comes in with Steve Clinkscale. And everybody's like, Clink, man, Clink will get it done on the recruiting trail. It's like, well, what kind of corner coach is he? He brings a lot of energy. They're coming back and saying that again. All right, he's going to bring a lot of energy. He didn't have a chance to work with his guys in the spring, but I just look back and look how the corners performed this year and how they developed. And, Clink on the field, and then Clink, you talk to people in the recruiting world, they all talk about Clink. And I talked with Jared Irons 2 days after the Ohio State game. I had him here on Afternoon Live, and Jarrett went to the game, and then afterwards, I think went to the hotel where the Michigan coaches were hanging out, and he was like, "Man, Clink, he's a real connection there. Really liked him. Everyone he talked to is like that." So I don't know. I'm going on about it. I guess I go all the way down the list here about all of Michigan's staff here, but they do have something going together here. They are younger as a staff. I'm just looking at some of the ages here. Josh Gaddis isn't 40. Sharon Moore's only 34 years old. This was heading into the season. Matt Weiss, 37. Jay Harbaugh, 31. Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator, he's only 33 years old. What are the rest? Clink's 43. He's the old man. Sorry, Clink. Sean Newa's 40. Ron Bellamy's not 40 years old. And George Hilo, the linebackers coach, guess how old he is? You're right. He's not 40. He's not even 30. He's 34 years old. This is all heading into the season. These guys may have had some birthdays here. Young staff that looking to make a name for themselves, and now they have everything going for them. They not only have, hey, this is what World News and Report has to say about Michigan as a public institution. Here's what the NIL, this is what's going on. Don't worry about anybody just, handing cash. This is what we can offer you right out of the gate and in the future here. I don't know exactly how those conversations go with the name, image, and likeness, but it's developing, and it's definitely it's in favor. It's better than it was. It's better than it used to be, because you couldn't offer anything. You couldn't offer any inducements. In other schools, yeah. Like, I didn't use it as an excuse. It felt a little bit like a cop-out overall to me. But you know what? I'm aware that other schools were, using cash benefits and giving players, all kinds of different things to play. So that's leveled it out a little bit as well. Exciting 30 hours to come here. Michigan sitting at with 20 commitments. If you're just stopping by, they are in the top 10, number 9 at Rivals team rankings. But like I said, up to 10 now players, and some very highly rated ones. I don't see any necessarily 5 stars there, but a bundle of 4 stars, and some future cast coming in. If you don't know what that is, this is where our experts at the Maize and Blue Review, when they feel good enough, confident enough about a certain player ending up at Michigan, they put a future cast in for him. Those future casts coming fast and furious from what I've seen over the last 24 hours from the big dogs at TMBR. Henschke, every time I turn around, he's posting something about a future cast. Every time Justice is on there, he's going on about, hey, how about this 4-star? How about this surprise? How about this coming in? So it is exciting, and it's a little bit unexpected. There's the part, like, now that it's all come together, we'll see how the next 24 hours or so plays out. But even after the Ohio State game, it's like, well, it's not necessarily going to mean that, this thing's going to heat up. But as Antoine indicated, and he's coming back here with another thought, that Michigan is hot, and they are hot on the recruiting trail right now. Antoine pointing out with recruiting, he doesn't think recruiting itself will be as important as past years because of the transfer portal. Michigan should have a transfer portal recruiter and pick specialized players from it. Antoine, I'm glad you brought up the portal, because the portal is a factor. And the one part where the portal is going to be a factor is when you start adding up all these numbers, you say, well, how come Michigan, they're shooting over 25 here. How many scholarships do they have? And, the answer is the fluid situation here. I'm looking, I have a board up here in the studio, and I'm looking at Wheeler, Mohan, Shibley, Van Sumeren, Paella, Villain, Reynolds, Faustin. That's 9 guys that I have counted. I might not even have them all up there. I wouldn't put this as hard and fast, but those are 9 guys that transferred out just on the defense last year. On the offense, there's Giles Jackson. Xavier Worthy was technically part of this class, right? Zach Charbonnet, last year's class. Milton, there's 4. Zach Carpenter, there's 5. Maybe I'm missing somebody. 9 on defense, 5 on offense. So, you're talking about 14 players that hit the portal. So you can expect double digits from, and you look and see who didn't play last year. Not everybody that doesn't play decides to, slam down a Dr. Pepper and jump into that portal, but a lot of them do. And, you get it. You're not playing, you feel like you can go somewhere else. You can go just like that. You can jump on in, put a 12-pack of Dr. Pepper, and, you jump in and you're off. So, a lot of that's happening. Think about Michigan and specializing in the portal. The thing, and, this is going to develop over time here. And, the part about credits transferring in, and if Michigan can get the same guy, are they at a little bit of a disadvantage? So I was just talking about how the playing field had evened out because of, the name, image, and likeness, and also not just evening out, but now a huge uptick for Michigan from winning the Big Ten and beating Ohio State. I do think, the portal is a spot where Michigan's behind a little bit, and they'll likely stay there because of credits transferring in. And you know what? You talk with enough people, like, if you ask me, I'm like, hey, just let the credits lower the standards, let the credits transfer for football players. And people are like, well, wait a second, not so fast. We really like that U.S. World News and Report rankings of the universities where Michigan's, always, if they're not one, I think this year it was UCLA, USC, and Michigan. They're top 3. Students are proud of that, or alums are proud of that. Like, hey, the best public institution, this side of the Rockies, heck, outside of California. Yeah, that's used. Michigan likes that. And so there's a lot of people who are like, no, we don't want to bend those credit allowances or whatever else, because that could affect, and I don't know if it will or not. It could. But I didn't think about that when I was talking about the playing field even, but the portal, it's not, Michigan can get players, but it's not, they are at a little bit of a disadvantage there. I went on enough about that. We do have some more feedback coming in here. Here's somebody for, this looks like a Russian bot. Here's Trepa. He's not a bot. What about the seniors with an extra COVID year? Will Michigan ask some of them to move on to make room for new? Well, that's a great point, Treppa. I mean, the one thing about that, and I don't know. I was looking exactly. So everybody last year, wherever you were at, it didn't matter. You got a bonus year because of COVID in Michigan. What they brought 2 players back that got extra years, and Hawkins on the defense and Vastardis as a center. Would there be anybody in that position this year that could come back? I don't know, somebody like Donovan Jeter. I'm just looking here off the top. Like Aiden Hutchinson, probably going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. He was a senior this year, but he has an extra year. Even though he technically could. And they would take Aiden Hutchinson back, but the chances of Aiden Hutchinson coming back are 0. Is there anybody else that's in a situation like that, looking across the board? Maybe. But maybe not. I don't know how many they do have in situations like that. I think everybody, Ronnie Bell probably could have come back anyways. Like he was a senior this year, but he got hurt in the first game. He could have got a medical there, but he doesn't have to. Maybe on that offensive line as I look through it. So, yeah, good question. Very good question. I'm sorry I don't have that answer readily available for you. I'm going to be asking about that. I think there might be a way when you're talking about freeing up scholarships. Look, I don't even know if you have to. I think the guys that they can make up their mind right now, and they're just like, boom, we're out of here with the portal. And I think you expect 10 guys to be hitting that transfer portal. I do have some audio, but I realize, we got the video here coming soon, as I've got some video capture equipment and the ability. I'll get those videos up along with the audio. But, right now I do have the audio, and people are listening on the podcast. They're like, all right, I like that. Well, let's get to some of that. Let's get to some of that audio. It's a little bit of an Orange Bowl preview here. I like to talk about that matchup against Georgia every day to New Year's Eve, at least something. And for this, I just grabbed some experts talking about it. One is Greg McElroy from ESPN. He was asked what he thought were the keys to the game, Michigan and Georgia.
You look at the defensive line for Georgia, long considered the strongest position group in college football. Depth, size, speed, anchored by a 360-pound nose tackle in Jordan Davis, who's a complete disruptor and is absolutely impossible to run the football against. However, that group struggled against Alabama, couldn't generate the pressure that they had on several different occasions throughout the season. So will they get back on track against arguably the best offensive line in college football? Michigan has been playing with an edge all year long, and their team has really rounded into form.
Yeah, they have rounded into form. I mean, that's the one thing about Michigan. And it's even the question, hey, they played so well over the last 2 games. Would it be great if they could just play the following week because they have this momentum? But I don't see the momentum stopping with, the break that they have to the Orange Bowl. If anything, you get the confidence in being able to execute there as the offensive line, and you feel like, and then you're able to execute it and then take it to the field and execute it. Well, that just gives you more confidence in what you're doing and the practices leading up to Georgia. So that momentum part, I don't know, it's always one of those things that's hard to, wrap your head around or wrap anything about, if there's really momentum or not, because, there was the thought about, well, is Michigan going to lose some of that momentum because they let it all hang out against Ohio State? And if you look back, people were automatically like, no, that momentum wasn't, they weren't overlooking Iowa. But if you go back, the first series that Michigan had against Iowa, I think they were 3-and-out. In the second series, Iowa went right down the field on them and ended up missing a 30-yard field goal. But, it doesn't mean that you start out, how far does is the momentum going to take you through a game? You're going to need all 4 quarters against Georgia. I think we can all agree about that. Out of all of the audio from the Orange Bowl that I have taken and put here in the system, I find that this next 60 seconds is the best preview, and not a surprise because it comes from Chris Fowler, who was on the Rich Eisen show. And Chris Fowler was asked to talk about the matchup and how he sees it. Here's Chris Fowler breaking down the Orange Bowl, Michigan and Georgia. And what do you think of it?
Expensive, low scoring. Vegas has got as one of the lower scoring games you'll see at this level. CFP games have been known for wild shootouts, basically, in the era when Clemson and Alabama and LSU brought these big offenses in. I think it's a different feel this year. Cincinnati and Alabama may be slightly higher scoring, but both teams sort of want to be physical and run the ball, and I think it comes down to which quarterback's going to be able to make plays. We saw McNamara make some beautiful throws against Ohio State, take advantage of the play action opportunities, press the ball when needed, take care of the football, which is what he has to do against Georgia. And then Stetson Bennett looked really average against Alabama after looking good for a lot of the year, at least in the metrics and the analytics. I always felt like, this is no slight on him. I mean, it's hard not to be insulted by this, but I just felt like limitations were going to come into play at some point when the quarterback had to make plays. And Alabama didn't give him any breathing room, came after him, and he struggled big time in that game. So Michigan can make him uncomfortable. Again, I like their chances. I think that, McNamara, it really is as simple sometimes as quarterback play, right? In these games, because I think they're pretty evenly matched and they're both physical and they both want to do the same things.
Yeah, I like the analysis there. And I like Michigan the more that I look at this game. I know there's a lot of people, and this is, I think, I don't know how much you can argue this. Georgia's got a great run defense. Georgia's got a great defense. So is Michigan, the one thing that they like to do to set up that play action is running the ball. And you can say, hey, Georgia's going to neutralize this, and it's going to come back to Kate McNamara, and that's advantage Georgia. Well, I see what you're saying there, but like what Fowler was saying, it's the same thing. Like Michigan's defense and the ability to get back to Bennett. If Michigan can play the run well, and I like McNamara in this spot more than I like Stetson Bennett. That's me. Actually, I like the combination of McNamara and McCarthy, who's a wild card in this game, like he's been all year long. And this one, even more of a wild card after seeing the success that Bryce Young had, the Alabama quarterback, against the Georgia defense. He was able to move around. And he was able to run the ball himself, and he was also able to free himself up, moving the pocket, to make some plays against that Dogs defense. And yeah, how many plays, how many packages have McCarthy in there, and some design rollouts and some design runs? A few, probably a few more than we've seen. And then, depending on how things go, you can see more of them. I feel great. I feel good about Michigan's chances in the Orange Bowl. And, how they played the last two games, how this thing's coming together for them. Looking at Georgia, I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but can Michigan get it to the fourth quarter and hang with the Dogs? I say yes. I think they can do that. All right, that's the audio for today. One more from Antoine. Super seniors are holding back other players. College football better get a cap on what they can offer players. It will hurt college football with the money and transfer players. Yeah, the super seniors didn't hold anything back from Michigan this year. I think it's one of the keys. You're talking about, how Michigan did this and where they're at. I think you want to start with Aiden Hutchinson. I think that's great. He was the best defensive player in the Big Ten, the best defensive player in the country. However you want to look at, one of the best defensive players in the country. And having the best player on one side of the ball, Michigan hasn't had that in a while, a big-time difference maker. So I think you do start with him. I think you go on the other side and you talk about Ojabo, but two positions that Michigan had super seniors at, and both of them came up big. Does Michigan win the Nebraska game without Brad Hawkins, Antoine? He made the strip at the end of Taylor Martinez and won the game. Now, we can't say for sure that Nebraska would have driven the field there and ended up scoring and beating Michigan in that one. It was a 3-point game, 32-29. So, maybe they could have got a touchdown. Maybe they could have gotten a field goal range. We could have been talking about an overtime. But the bottom line is the super senior Hawkins made the play to win that game. And also, he played not just all right as a safety this year. He played great. Brad Hawkins was great for Michigan, tackling, playing safety. He was awesome. He was everything that you could want out of the safety position. He graded out that way, analytics and everything else, made the plays. So he's, no, you're not talking about him as Hutchinson or Ojabo, but you're talking about him pretty quick as one of the not only the stars, but, difference makers for the Michigan defense this year. And on offense, what can you say? We've been going over this offensive line. You go through each one of them and everything else, but you have to have the guy there snapping the ball that's making all the communication. He's calling out all the, protections, and, he's snapping the ball there. And from a walk-on to a sixth-year guy in Vistardis, how valuable was he? I'm going to say pretty valuable, because behind him, they would have probably had to move Zinter over to center. So then now you're subtracting from, the interior or the guard play, and, having to switch somebody in there at center. Maybe it'd have been okay, but Vistardis and for Michigan, Brad Hawkins were, part of the story and why they ended up having the kind of season that they had. So I see what you're talking about. He's talking about college football as a whole, not just Michigan. Yeah, all right. I mean, but, the one thing you can do, Antoine, we go back to it, like, it was the pandemic. I mean, there was a lot of things that went down that wasn't perfect, that was not perfect when you come and talk about, the game and what happened here. But so, we just have to deal with that. And we're still dealing with some things like that. All right. We did the recruiting spotlight. Also, every day we do the memorabilia minute. I usually, pull something up and say, hey, this is the piece of memorabilia that I have. Sometimes, a lot of times with memorabilia, it's the things that you had, but you don't have anymore. And I think you're on the eve of National Signing Day. I go back to 1995. There was a bar in Ann Arbor called Banfield's on the west side. It's not there anymore. But, Banfield had us come in, and we were going to do a National Signing Day extravaganza in 1995. And Banfield gave me a VHS tape. And on that VHS tape, it had the, 20 minutes or so of the 1995 Michigan recruiting class. And we played it over and over again, as a 4-hour show or whatever it was, the signing day extravaganza. We're bringing players on, and we hope to bring some players on here tomorrow and talk with them, future Wolverines with their letters of intent, coaches, players, analysts. We'll see what we can get cooking tomorrow. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it right now. But I bring that 95 tape up because 95 was one of the great Michigan recruiting classes of all time. No, it wasn't ranked number one. The couple years after that, the Drew Henson, Hayden Epstein, I think they were number one overall that year. But if you just look at the 95 class, they kept showing this running back from Fremont. The video is footage from a running back from Fremont, Ohio, and you're watching him, and they said that, well, he's not going to play running back at Michigan. They'll play him at corner. And the running back from Fremont was named Charles Woodson. And you're watching it. He looks pretty good. It's pretty good tape, Charles Woodson. So you get the running back from Fremont, and then you got this skinny, didn't look like a very mobile quarterback out of San Mateo in California, Tom Brady. He's over there. I was like, all right, quarterback's always the glamour position. Here's another one. Here's, Brady coming in. We'll see, what he's all about. But, Brady and Woodson, and, it was Ty Streets. I remember Clarence Williams being in that class, Aaron Shea. Heck of a class, but I kept playing that tape. I wish I had that tape. I don't know how much film of that, even on YouTube, is around anymore. Maybe I just gave that away. Although, what would I do with a VHS tape? I have to find a way to. There's ways to bring that to you. All right, so that's the memorabilia minute for today. All right, tomorrow we'll see. I'll be here at 1:00 tomorrow, but if the recruits are available, I'll be talking to them all day long. So when they're available, just check out, hit the along with the subscribe, the notifications there, and when it pops up, hey, he's going live. That means I'll likely have a recruit on, and we'll be talking with him tomorrow on National Signing Day, which is going to be great. And it already is. The way things are as hot as could be here for Michigan. All right. Thanks for watching. That'll do it. Good night, everybody. Have a great day.